Okay, welcome back to At the Edge, a series where we explore the edges of our capabilities and share stories, strategies, and insights that will empower you to step into your greatness. I'm your host, Valerie Beck, and joining me is my co host, Kris McDaniel. Today, our main topic is going to be meditation because you and I have both had pretty deep experiences with meditation, and it still continues to be a really important part of keeping centered, I think, and like keeping focused on our goals. And, there's a lot of wishy-washiness about meditation, and I want to talk about it from a more down to earth perspective and the practicalities of meditation and like why it's important and why I think, it doesn't have to be a certain way. Like it could be something that you can find your own way into as well. So, with that being said, let's kind of just jump right into it because I think both of us have had very different experiences with meditation. And I know that your journey started way early on, whereas mine started pretty late in life.
Mm.
So, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll let you start this time.
Okay. So meditation for me was not something that I was into. Like I grew up in suburban New York and there like yoga was like non-existent growing up. Like none of everything that was esoteric was very hippy dippy and like not even within like the vocabulary of most people.
Which is strange
So,
because now it seems like it's like every day, like
yeah.
everybody does it. It became so popular.
It's so strange, yeah, but like the for the first, I would say even 24 years of my life, I went by without like barely thinking about meditation or yoga or any of this stuff.
Yeah, it's easy to do. It's like a subculture at that point,
Yeah.
like veganism or something.
Yeah. But by the time I hit, I think 24, 25, things were starting to fall apart. And when I moved to LA, it didn't stop falling apart. And, I went by a couple more years trying to get my shit together and it wasn't working. And so, what sparked me and my interest in meditation was actually like just continuously failing at relationships and specifically romantic relationships. Um, I was at a point where like I was just attracting people who were just were they were just so willing to step all over me and just like use me and then dump me. And I could not for the life of me figure out what was wrong with me. And I thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah, I was like, you're blaming
Um,
yourself for their problems.
yeah. I had no idea what was going on and I was really stuck and really miserable. And had remembered this was even, this was actually like close to my late 20s. And I had like moved to New Zealand. And I remember my roommate at the time, she had tried to do a Vipassana meditation, which is a 10-day silent meditation where you can't talk to anyone, and you
I've
can't look
never
at
heard of
anyone.
this.
Yeah.
That's
And
crazy. I've
yeah,
never heard of that before.
it's
You
actually
can't
free.
look at
They're
people.
worldwide. They're like you go there, they even feed you and house you, and it's all donation based. Like, and you're not allowed to donate unless you finished.
Wow.
So my roommate actually didn't finish. She actually like she ran away after like 3 days, but it always stuck with me. I was like, that's really interesting that you would try to do that. And when I came back to LA and I was still going through all of this misery, I thought back to like, hey, what about this silent meditation for 10 days? And so I looked it up. I signed up for one that was going over like Christmas break. So essentially I would miss Christmas and New Year's. And it was like 10 days in the desert.
Man,
Um
missing the holidays.
and missing the holidays. But that's what the point
Wow.
that I was at, where like I was
Determination.
so angry and miserable and everything. I was like, I'm willing to just not talk to anyone for 10 days. And that was my first look into meditation. And I would say that it kicked me back into a more rational level of thinking during those 10 days. And it gave me a lot of clarity, but it didn't, that was just the beginning.
So
So
that's like how you got into it.
it's how I got into it.
Was just like getting to that point where you felt like you had to like take whatever out you could.
Yeah, like I had to just like remove some of the poison first. You know, when
Yeah.
you first start meditation and if there's a lot going on and you're just trying to remove that inner poison, it's you're not going to get to that place of like, oh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
perfect, right?
I think that's something a lot of people don't talk about enough actually
Yeah.
is like when you're doing this meditation, you don't just get to tap in. You don't
Mm-mm.
get to just lock in immediately like that. There's a lot of baggage in there, you know. It's like, I think some people whenever they get to that like state, it's like balancing, like already having a clean room and they're just trying to maintain it versus like going into like a hoarder's house and it's like there's so many other like things you have to do first in order to even get to that point where you even know what this room looks like underneath all this mess. And a lot of people they can't find themselves because they're buried underneath all that like mental and emotional mess. So it's like that part of the process actually is something I like to focus on a lot because I don't think enough people talk about it. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, especially whenever you come to these people who, are gurus and they're like teachers and they're these, like higher up people that you trust and you are a broken individual and you come to them and then they don't have the answers. Like that's a scary place to be is whenever you go to people you think are like the spiritual leaders and they don't have the answers because they're so used to dealing with people who, quote unquote, have their room cleaned already
Mm-hmm.
and they've never had to deal with somebody and they themselves have never had to deal with actually having that type of like chaos going on inside their brain.
Yeah. And so like it wasn't a clean start. And I think, like you said, it's really important for people to know this. Like if you're in a turbulent situation and you try to meditate, like it's going to be a lot of crying and like ruminating. Like literally, I think
Man,
the majority of the time I was sitting in the desert, I was there were still cyclical thoughts over and over, right? And I was slowly letting go of some of those, slowly letting go of those to a place where at least I just had a little bit of calm. But the underlying root of that, essentially what was like low self-esteem and like not valuing myself, I didn't get to the root of that. And I didn't start uncovering that until I continued and for years after. So um that's it's not like a one and done. Like people talk about like, oh, I had this like really blissful experience and I just wish I can always get back to there. It's like it's not meditation for most of the time is an active decluttering and it could
yeah.
it's a
It's
struggle.
like cleaning your room. It really is. It's
Yeah.
like I want to say it was Carl Jung that I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Young, whatever it is, but I think it was him that I found a quote that said something like dealing with like your shadows and stuff is like doing the laundry. Like it has to be done every week. It's not something that you just get to do once and then you're finished and you've reached nirvana and or enlightenment and whatever. Like you actually have to do it pretty often because you're gonna run into things and they're gonna deposit these dark sediments in your mind somewhere. You have to go in and clean it out just like dust collects in your room. It's not that it's a sign of just some broken system or whatever. It's just that it's just a natural process of being a human.
Yeah. And what Vipassana teaches you is that you are by continuously staying still and scanning your body, you're scraping away at um the tendency for you to think in those negative loops.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
eventually, just like with anything, it becomes subconscious.
Yeah.
You think that like, oh my God, I have to do this the rest of my life. I can't deal with this, whatever, like this agony you think that you went through in the beginning. Like, oh no, I can't do this. It's not worth it. And then I have to keep doing this. There's no way. Like, no, it's just like learning how to write. It's like learning how to like draw or type or something. It's something that you're gonna have to do very often, but you start to do it and you don't even realize that you're doing it.
Yeah.
You don't pay attention to home row keys when you type anymore. You're just typing. It's such a subconscious thing. When you walk, learning how to walk was a tragic process at first, right? A lot of falling and hitting things. And now you walk everywhere and you don't pay attention to it. It's meditation's the same way. You start to naturally declutter your brain every time you have, a thought, and then you realize, oh, this isn't serving me. Let me direct my attention somewhere else because my attention is better served on these things. And it's
Yeah.
something that you won't even pay attention to. You'll just realize that's stupid, and then you'll start focusing on something better.
Yeah. Which we'll go into in a little bit, but I want to hear how you got into meditation first.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, it was weird. It was like I don't know how I feel like I got pulled into it because I remember whenever I was like, I want to say between 5 and 7. It's kind of hard to remember, but I used to like daydream a lot. Like I was alone a lot as a kid, and I had this wild imagination, and so I was actually at a friend's house one night, and I was staying at their house and trying to sleep, and then and then like as I was falling asleep, I remember this like sphere of light was like around. It was like just black, like behind my eyelids, and then there was these like 7 colors or something, like blue, red, orange, yellow, white, whatever. And they almost like asked me, like, hey, do you want to try this? Do you want to go to this place? And I was like, sure. It was weird because I wasn't asleep. You could have been like that in between REM sleep or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But next thing I know, I'm like in the sky falling down towards this like area. And I'm talking to these people and I'm being trained with certain things, and I'm being like almost like guided, playfully with these people. And then for the rest of my life, like they just stuck with me. Like this place became somewhere that I could go to and get guidance from these people, which was weird. I mean, I look back at it now and I think like, well, I didn't really have parents, so these might have been like, figures that stepped in to raise me in my brain that I had to create in order for me to actually have that guidance growing up. But yeah, I mean, it gave me so much information that I never had access to because I mean, you got to think this is like way back. This is like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm not on a computer figuring this stuff out. I'm not going to the library. I'm like 7 years old. So the knowledge that I was getting around that time was like really eye-opening to me. And so learning how to do things like close my eyes and tap into my body to like run as fast as I could. I remember like when I would race people, I would run and then I could almost like hear like one of those voices being like, this isn't all you have, you can tap in and do a lot more. And I would just run till my legs gave out. Like I learned how to tap into so many new things strength wise, but I also learned how to find a new place of peace. So like if
Hmm.
I was ever stressed out, I learned how to just breathe, and then it felt like, it's almost like I put on a raincoat, and it just all the negativity just washed off of me. I was able to just focus. And and that's the reason I was also trying to emphasize like learning how to clean that garbage out of your brain is because like that taught me how to do that. That real made me realize like there's so much darkness in here, but now you're equipped to attack it. So I was able to filter out a lot of thoughts. And I think at the end of the day what my brain was trying to do was it was trying to take who I wanted to be and who was like my guiding factors, and then my negative aspects that were slowing me down, and it kind of personified each aspect of my brain in that manner. And then so as I was growing older, because I had no therapy or counseling or psychology, I had no knowledge of these things. That was the best way that my brain could say like, you need to get rid of these thoughts are not good for you. You want to hurt people, you have anger, you have sadness, you have this depression. And my brain said that no, you are being like possessed by another thing is influencing you. So it was like, that's how I got into meditation, because then from there I learned what meditation was. Then I learned the psychology behind it, and then the effects and all this kinds of stuff. But yeah, it kind of like pulled me into it. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's a really incredible journey because you hear about them sometimes where it just kind of comes to you.
Hmm.
Whereas like, mine was like externally, like I had to try to go and find it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it's so interesting and that you were able to tap in to that at an early age. And I also want to kind of ask you about this too, because when I first heard the phrase tap in, I really didn't understand what that person was getting at. Like a lot of people, when you say tap in, they can't even conceptualize that. Right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, definitely.
what does that mean? So can you explain that to someone who might have never experienced that?
Mm, I'm trying to do it. I'll just explain it for me, and then if I can simplify it, I'll try to
Yeah.
simplify it. So for me, tapping in is just it's a word that I've only started recently using, but in the moment, it's the feeling of whatever I'm focusing on is going to be the number one thing that I'm focusing on. And I think the reason that I was able to do that is because I watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z growing up, a lot of anime, and like the main characters and how you would see them like very often on the brink of death, you would realize like it's either do this or I'm killed. And there is no other option. And so my brain was kind of like this all or nothing brain. It probably
Mhm.
comes from this ADHD type mentality, but that's how it was. Like I could not lose. I could and not like lose to another person. I couldn't lose to myself. I refused to let myself go under or go down or slow down from anything. Like if I got sick, I immediately walked outside and started running. I whatever I felt like if I was having a bad day, I'm attacking it. Whatever it is, I'm attacking it. I'm not going to let anything but me control my body. And you get to a point where obviously there are days where you realize like, man, this is awful. Like, especially when you're like you have the flu or something, you're not supposed to be outside, and I would not recommend this for people because it's probably not that good for you. But for me, when you have like, 100-degree fever and you are outside sprinting your head off, like just trying to like break your body almost to make it listen to you,
Mm.
it puts you in this mind state of this genuinely might kill me, but I don't care because I have to be the one in charge. So it's really just once you get pushed to that extreme, tapping in is just learning how to just treat it like it's the most important thing in the world. It has to be. And you have to frame yourself in that manner because I think something else I'd want to expand on when it comes to this is when people are trying to do things like tap in and they don't know what that means, they've oftentimes not been at that position. They've never framed their brain in a way that made what they're doing that important. Because I
Mm.
can't say that every time I worked out, I was tapped in. It's not like I just tapped in all the time. Sometimes I'm like, geez, and I would just start walking, and I feel like I was just going to collapse. Like it's so hard to really do that. But then I would have to go inside my brain and just ask myself, are you going to let this happen? This is your life. This is the person that you want to be, and you're going to let this moment right here define what you do for the next week, the next month, the next year. And so if you lose now, you're teaching your body that it's okay to lose, and it is not okay to lose. I mean, I did not treat myself with much respect. Like I said, this is not something I would recommend people do, but it was just at that moment that's how I felt, and
Yeah.
so I learned how to tap in through that. And then when I was in a better mind state, now it's like if I was to, since I do tumbling and flipping and all this kinds of stuff, if I'm doing a skill and I land short or I land, wrong or something, I know how to take a step back now and say, okay, I'm not treating this like it's that important, and I'm treating this as if I don't have any hope of landing it.
Mm.
I have to make sure that when I run at this skill, I'm running fast. When I punch off the ground, I'm punching hard. Like it has to be important.
Okay. Let me try to also word that, and I'll let you say if this is kind of accurate. So, sometimes when I go to, like when I was going to the free running gym, right, there are times where I go where I'm super distracted by what everyone else is doing, and I'm kind of even afraid to pull some skills or throw stuff because I'm like, oh, people are watching and all of this, and it's like my all of my energy and focus is out here. But then there are times where I go to the gym and I'm like, I'm going to work on front flips until I land one. And at those times, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. And I'm just continuously going over and over and like focusing on all of my effort on each one, moment by moment. It's like, how do I feel this right now? And just and that becomes my aim being there. And then everything else kind of washes away. So would you say like that second example of like being there and like doing that is like what you would consider tapping in?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's because that's what I do now. But for
Mhm.
me, that's like you're focusing and tapping in is narrowing it down even more.
Okay.
Like tuning out the distractions is like the first part of it. So like for example, because I used to obviously go to LA too, and like these Tempest gyms get overcrowded with all kinds of people. And I had the same issue, especially when I first got there. I found myself mingling with everyone else instead of sitting down and focusing on what I needed to focus on. And then I never got the skills I was after because I always let other things distract me. I never wanted
Mhm.
to work on the things I was bad at.
Mm.
So sometimes I would go in and I would like, let's say I'm trying to throw a skill that I just cannot land for the life of me, and I'm very frustrated about it. Tapping in like making sure that I'm not focused on what everyone else is doing is the first half. The
Yeah.
second half is getting very, very determined to do the thing that I'm doing. So let's say if you were doing a front flip, for example, and you landed short and you're like, oh man, what happened here? And you're kind of like calmly thinking about like why you didn't land that skill. But in your head, you're almost like, if I
Mm,
go home with a little bit of progress, that's fine. And if I don't hit the ground really hard, that's fine. I don't really want to get hurt. I don't want to be sore tomorrow or whatever. And you still have all these excuses.
yeah.
Even though you're not paying attention to what people are doing, you're still not really tapped in. You have to know that, like, I ran as fast as I could. And when I punched the ground, I almost tried to break the springboards because that's how hard I'm trying to front flip. I'm trying to get really high. I know I'm bullshitting myself. I know I'm not trying as hard as I can, and I'm going to. Like, that to me is what tapping in is.
Mhm. Great. I like it. Yeah, so it's that extra in yoga they talk about this, going from single point focus to the state of meditation. And it is almost like that, like you're focused and then you're even more refined until like it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like the stages to the state of like they call it
Yeah, that and
samadhi, but it's
that's
like evenness.
that's the reason people like they love the feeling so much is because you are so focused on that one thing. You got to think you're one step away from not focusing on anything at all, and you're just in a state of zen.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people feel so zenful when they're drawing, and they're just all in drawing. They don't
Yeah.
know what time it is. They don't know who's talking to them. They're just zoned completely in, and you're one step away from not focusing on anything at all, which is
Mhm.
like that state that people try their best to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a goal in meditation, and it is that is to be so focused that it melts away. And there are different ways of getting there, and it feels really like I guess people describe it as like a bliss state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the problem there's like a little bit of a pitfall is like if you do end up reaching this really early, some people start to crave that, and that's the only reason why they would do it, right? Um, but that is a pitfall because if you're just trying to reach that all the time as the end goal, you kind of forget the process that,
Oh yeah, I mean
yeah,
they even tell you like having a goal it defeats the purpose of the
yeah.
goal in meditation. Like if you look at like Zen, they always tell you like it's no thing. It's not a goal or a thing. If you can say it, then that's not it.
Hmm.
If you know what it is, then that's not it. If it's a thing to you, then it's not it. It's the doing of non-doing. It's
Hmm.
yeah, it's like it sounds so like contradictory and like paradoxical. I understand why it would be hard, but to phrase it is that the goal is to eventually focus on nothing so that your
Yeah.
brain has the ability to just clear itself out and do what it needs to do without because the brain runs its own processes. Like when you're sleeping, sleep is so important because that's what happens. Like let's say you're stressed out, right? You're more
Hmm.
likely to have a nightmare. You're not likely to have a dream that's going to heal you. You're just your brain has to express the things that are inside of it, and we oftentimes get really caught up not wanting to face the things that we have to, and so we end up having nightmares because we try to repress them, and your brain says
Hmm.
you have to face this thing. It's in there. It has to come out. If it doesn't come out, you're just going to hold on to it until it kills you. It's like anything else we put in our body that was rotting away and was terrible. We would never say, "Oh, I don't want to get this out of me."
Yeah.
It has to come out. It has to leave you. You have to know it's there and you have to acknowledge that it's there and you have to work on removing it from you. So
Yeah.
you have to face it. And that's what that goes back to what you're saying. Like when people start doing this meditation, a lot of times, especially for me, I know this is that I know that when I get, let's say I go through a long period of like not meditating, because
Hmm.
unfortunately, when I was in LA, I did that a lot. I went through a long period of just work, 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 and then I would distract myself and then work, 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 and distract myself. And that was my cycle. And when I first got a car and I started working this job, I wasn't able to have as easy of a time of calling my friends or watching a show or sitting on my phone. It was just me, the music, and the road. And I was driving for an hour and a half here, an hour and a half there. And I just started crying. It's because all these things start bubbling to the surface and I can't
Hmm.
stop them. There's nothing to distract me. I'm crying, I'm angry, I'm calling people that I haven't called in a long time. I'm trying to make things right with people. I'm trying to, build a future with certain people. I'm really trying to clean up my life because finally all these things that my brain was holding on to is now trying to, is put it places, put it where it needs to go. This energy has to go somewhere. Put it somewhere, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Um, I think that goes back to that cleaning aspect of like you're
Yeah.
there if you see your soul kind of having layers of dirt that you've never bothered to wash off. It's like that. And also there's generational trauma. So if your parents carried a lot of dirt that they never bothered to clean up, a lot of that becomes ours too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Poverty mind state like we talked about last time, uh, health, all these things. It's because they tell you stuff at such an early age, and sometimes that stuff is they don't intend for it to be wrong, but it ends up being wrong, and it becomes very damaging to you. And then you have to spend the rest of your life building against what your parents told you. And if mine aren't alive anymore, but so it was easier for me to get them out of my head because they're not able to talk to me. But some people have parents that are not only bad for them and they don't even know it, but they're so deeply involved in their life that they're terrified of upsetting them. Like, oh my
Mhm.
God, what's my dad going to think if I tell him I want to be a streamer? What's my mom going to think if I tell her I want to start my own clothing brand? Like, this is not how we were raised. They don't think that these things are possible. They think these things are stupid and they're never going to support me. And you constantly have and they're your support system. Whenever you
Mhm.
feel lonely or you need some money or you need a place to go back to, who are you going to? You'll probably go back to your parents. And if they're constantly in your ear telling you stuff, I mean, the amount of time you have to fight against that is just, it's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, it goes even deeper than that. It's just the inherent behavior that you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
Even when you're a baby,
Yeah.
people don't know. Like you can even trace it back more, right? Like your grandparents' generation stuff, that all the
Mhm.
stuff that they were subjected to, they unconsciously inherited and then passed down to you. So it's like there is a lot of muck that gets built up even without realizing it. Not just the stuff that we deal with that we already know about, but the stuff that we don't.
Yeah, because we got to carry new stuff.
Hmm.
We're in a different society with different problems, and that society is putting things on us that we have to be very careful not to pass down again.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. So let's go on to a slightly different topic with this meditation. So I know we've talked about like the benefits of it. I think that's some of it speaks for itself, but are there any side benefits that you have experienced from doing this regularly? Like what are some that you can think of?
Well, there's like a lot of different meditations that I've done. Like I've realized that getting to that point that where you're just sitting in peace with a quiet mind, that's just like meditation wise, that's just pulling out a blank sheet of paper.
Hmm.
You can do things with it. You can draw things on it. You can fold it. You can, what I'm saying? That mind state is a flexible mind state. And from there, you can go almost
Hmm.
anywhere. So the benefits of the types of meditations that I did, I mean, it's like I have so much body control now that like, if I need to, I mean, even down to the point where I can slow my heart rate down. I can dilate my own eyes. I can like bend ligaments, like just certain things like that. My reflexes are faster. Like my peripherals, are like a lot wider than a lot of people's. When my vision gets blurry, I can like focus it and make it not blurry anymore for like days, weeks, whatever. Like I can focus in on my eyes. And if anything is wrong, I think the biggest benefit is like if anything is wrong in my body, I'm so attuned to it. I know
Hmm.
exactly why it is doing what it's doing, and I can almost like close my eyes and physically relax certain parts of my body that are hurting. Like,
Yeah.
and this comes in handy when stuff like having a toothache, when you start to panic and you have no idea what to do. This happened to me just like a few months ago. I had like a really bad toothache and I didn't know what to do. Nothing was fixing it. Medicine wasn't working. I mean, I was panicking. And then I sat in the shower. I said, I'm going to do the only thing I know how to do, and that's just hit that zone, just really really focus in on that meditation, and you'd be so surprised at how fast my entire being just relaxed.
Hmm.
It's crazy, like being able to do stuff. I mean, it's harder for me to get injured, it's harder for me to get caught up on a bad thought, it's harder for me to get emotionally in turmoil, and that's just my state of being
Yeah.
now.
That's that's really good. I The type of meditation that I can think of that I've done that has similar benefits is something called yoga nidra, and it's one that I actually teach. So it's kind of, it's not quite meditation. It's actually a precursor, but it's a way of consciously letting go of tension in your body, and then coming to a state where you are no longer physically attached to it.
So it's like a physical meditation.
Uh, yeah,
A
so it's
body, it's
usually
a muscle
done.
body type
Yeah,
thing. Okay, yeah.
it's usually done guided because you're supposed to stay very, like, your mind is supposed to stay active throughout the process. And so
Mhm.
the way that that usually happens is if you're listening to someone else's voice. Um, because for a
Yeah,
lot of
I know
people,
what this
it's,
one is. I don't have any name for any
yeah.
meditation, but I had to clarify. But yeah, I know exactly what this one is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually, this one is usually done lying down, and so people have like cured their phantom limb syndrome from this, and like a bunch of other stuff. Like if you have lost a limb or something
Hmm.
and you still have pain in that limb because it's like
Oh yeah, yeah,
your
I've heard
brain
of
is telling
that.
you it's still there, you can use that type of yoga nidra state to release the pain.
Hmm. Yep.
And doctors have been trying to figure out forever, like how to help people with this syndrome. And actually, you could do it with your own mind.
Yeah, because the way I do it was like from my toe to my head, I try to like move through and relax every muscle on the way up, and then once it's relaxed, try to relax it even more on the way back down,
Mhm.
and then relax it even more on the way back up, and do it until I almost feel like I can't move. Like I feel like I don't have the ability to move my hand anymore. And is that state of detachment you're talking about?
Yeah, it is. And so the theory in yoga behind doing that is that once you have relaxed so much that your body's no longer like present, is that it frees your mind to create new templates for possibilities.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. Because, like, one of the
I
things
never
about your
thought about it that
body,
way, but yeah, that's really
yeah,
cool.
one of the things about your body is that it reacts constantly. So, a
Hmm.
lot of people with chronic pain, it's because they're reacting to every single stressor that's going on in their environment. Their brain
Yeah.
is like, this sucks, and this sucks, and this sucks. And, like, whenever that happens, your adrenals are firing constantly. So, it's like you're almost trapped in your body and it's causing this pain and inflammation.
Yeah.
But if your mind can tell the body to shut off, then your mind becomes free.
Yeah. I remember I seen like a couple of those near death experiences or out of body experiences like on TikTok recently. And they very often will describe it as like I've left my body, but I feel peace and I just all my pain is gone. They're like I looked at my body like it was just a piece of clothing laying on the ground. That's all it is to me. And the way I feel now is unlike I've ever felt ever in my entire life. And I knew that by going back into my body, I'm almost inviting all this pain and suffering and then just all this useless stuff that's happening in my body. It's like
Hmm.
you come back and I think the one that I saw just recently where she was like she came back and she was just so sore for so long
Hmm.
because like you're just not used to it anymore. Your body's so relaxed and then you have to deal with all that tension again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine if you had the power, like if you spent the time to do this regularly, like you wouldn't need massage even.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's true. It's like it's genuinely just tension. Like people they always say like you carry tension in certain parts of your body. Like I carry a lot of tension up in my like in my traps. For
yeah.
example, and it'll get to a point where it gives me a headache.
Yeah.
And living in a place where it's stressful, it's not going to go away. I mean, I used to be almost known for teaching like this with my hand.
Mm,
Here I am coaching people and I'm constantly rubbing myself and stretching my shoulders and all this kinds of stuff because I have such a knot like all through here in my shoulders.
yeah.
And like now that I'm in a better place and I can actually I feel like it's okay to meditate. But even without the meditation, like going back to what we said, like the side benefits, it's like I'm just naturally physically more relaxed,
Yeah.
just a lot more relaxed. If I feel inflammation, I become aware and then I relax. And then
Yeah.
if I feel something, I become aware, I relax, I become aware, I relax. And I can do that not necessarily as a whole body process but individually.
Yeah.
oh, my arm's sore, and then it'll relax. Oh, my back's tight, relax. Like
Yeah.
all these things start to happen just subconsciously without me realizing.
I'm constantly now, I always think about my breath because like when I get stressed, like I will stop breathing. And now it's
Yeah.
come to a place where I know it now. And I'm like, you're not breathing right now. Take a few deep breaths. Right. And a lot of that is like, then you can start to integrate that into your life.
Hmm.
So the next thing I want to talk about is that is like, because we've been doing this for a while, how do you integrate this into your practices to like do things meditatively but not necessarily go into the full on meditation where you sit and just, you know, allow nothingness, but like having those, like applying those principles. And I'll give you my own example first. So like for a while handstands were like my way to tap in essentially. It was like my pandemic practice is trying to hold a handstand for as long as I could. And I love that, like I even prefer that sometimes to my other practices because it allowed me to just stay there, do one thing, think of nothing but trying to be as still as possible because that's really what it is like putting all of your energy into staying as still as possible so that gravity doesn't pull you down and all of that. Um, but other people say like washing dishes is their meditative state where they can just like focus on the movement of washing the dishes and like that, the ritual of doing that. And like that becomes their like way to tap in.
Hmm.
And my dad is like that. So
I have to do that with today's my meal prep day actually,
yeah.
and that's like one of the things that I do that I'm not so consciously meditating for. I don't do it during, but I can feel it.
Hmm.
It's like I know that this is all I'm thinking about. And it
Hmm.
doesn't, once I get in the zone, even though I'm not a cook, I don't consider myself a cook because I've never cooked for a long time. And I just copy a lot of, I don't know, maybe I have imposter syndrome or something. I feel like I'm just copying a bunch of recipes. They turn out good and then I just do it again. But so it's like I have to cook, for me, 2 meals a day every day. And then I have to cook for my roommate, my two roommates, also friends, roommates. And so, it's like while I'm doing this, even though it's not something that I prefer or something that I necessarily enjoy or would do, like if I didn't have to meal prep, I'm not cooking. That's just, it's not a thing that I like to do. But while I'm doing it, I can tell that like I'm not thinking about other things really.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll put my earbuds in, and I'll try to listen to music, but very often I have my earbuds in and there's no music playing. I'm just doing my thing. This comes after this, that comes after that, that comes after this, and I'm trying my best to get done quick. So I will end up running like 3 meals at the same time, and I'm like, I need this here. I'm gonna prep this while that's cooking. Let this here, and like I get to zone in, and it just feels like it doesn't feel chaotic. I'm not really sure why, because like I said, I don't really think of myself as like a cook and being able to balance all these things at the same time. But once I zone in, just feeling like I've got this in the oven and this pot going here and that meal on this burner and this one, being chopped up right here. And I've got all these things and knowing which one's going to be done at which, and it sounds so chaotic, but it's automatic.
Yeah.
And walking through these things automatically, it's like following the footprints in the snow. It's like I'm not actually even here. I'm
Hmm.
just doing the thing that's in front of me. And so it's just one foot in front of the other. It's very zen, so zoned in. And like, it's not necessarily my preferred thing, but
Yeah.
it's there. And I'm not sure I was going to ask you about these handstands too, because I've been working on those a little bit recently. Do you feel like sometimes, I'll also do this while lifting weights, that there's a point where what you're doing takes a lot of physical effort, but it's almost like relaxing is the better way to go about it. Not necessarily relaxing in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna relax the bar and just fucking slam it on my chest. I mean,
Yeah.
like, just like I'm squeezing too many muscles.
Yeah.
I'm not, and you know what I'm saying. So there's so much effort going into the wrong muscle. That's what they talk about, that mind muscle connection. That when you're lifting something, it's like I need to focus all my attention on like the 80/20 rule, like
Yeah.
80% of my focus needs to go on 20% of the things or whatever it is that's going to get me this handstand or, however it goes. But it's
Yeah.
almost like, yeah, I find myself upside down and I'm like just doing too much. And I'm
Hmm.
like, breathe. And I'll breathe. And then my legs will just, only the parts that need to squeeze will squeeze. There's no wobbling.
So it's actually handstands are even a better example than I thought they were because it is I have found that my best handstands are the ones where all of a sudden I can just relax my shoulders and it's like it's like I let go of a
Yeah.
it's like I let go and I could just stay there and I'll stay there for like over a minute. And I want to get eventually I want to get to at least a couple of minutes, but
Yeah.
um like it's that point of relaxation that actually makes it easier because I'm not going to like people say, oh, squeeze your core and all of that, and like that's great, but that's really technical and it also takes a lot of freaking energy.
Yeah.
If you want to be staying there for a couple of minutes, you can't
Be
be
squeezed the whole
continuously
time.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, it's like I used to do this too when I first started working out, and like it was all just lift, lift, lift for me. It was like an emotional thing versus a technical thing. And dude, I gave myself a headache for like 3 days. So I'm like squeezing my neck. I'm like, dude, my neck has nothing to do with this lift. Why am I straining the back of my neck? I'm
Yeah.
not like using my neck to lift myself up or anything. It'd be like bicep curls or something. Why am I squeezing my neck? Like it's just gonna give me a headache and make me black out. Like I'm
Yeah.
squeezing way too many things. I'm doing too much because in my head I'm thinking, squeeze, be strong, do the thing. And it's like, dude, just
Mhm.
focus all your energy on the thing you actually should be doing, not on squeezing your entire body.
I wonder if it is this whole with the meditation, it's like at first there's a lot of things to work through. And especially for beginners who are really afraid of handstands, they put tension in all of the wrong places.
Mhm.
Like even getting up to a like handstand against the wall is a terrifying. And so like they're tensed before they even try to kick,
Yeah.
And so like maybe just getting there to tense the right parts is the step before they even learn how to relax, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder if there is merit to also training your brain to relax before you even attempt to start like do the handstand stuff.
I think so too, actually. The reason I would say this is because, like, doing tumbling, especially, I'm always really scared to get injured.
Yeah.
And so, going at it at a relaxed pace, I will not do something that I think is going to hurt me. I'm
Hmm.
not going to do something that I will push as hard as I can, but I quit whenever control becomes a problem.
Mm.
I don't quit when my body fails me. I quit when control becomes a problem. If I start running fast and then I start stumbling, I won't go for the trick.
Yeah.
If I do a cartwheel and I know it's really quick, but it came up too short, I'm not going for the trick. I'm not
Hmm.
doing these things like because I know this is gonna mess me up. And I know that if it doesn't feel, it almost feels like water running through a tube or something. It's like if it hits something suddenly, I'm not going because the energy is not going the direction it needs to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like in parkour when you jump off of something really high and you hit the ground, like the energy goes from the ground into your feet.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have to absorb your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back, your shoulders, and then you do the roll, and then the energy has dissipated. But if
Hmm.
at any point your body stops, let's say, for example, it hits your toes and your ankles, your knees, and you didn't like round your back out
Yeah.
and you just hit the ground flat backed, I mean, you're going to take all the impact and just ram it into your lower back.
Yeah.
And that right there is why relaxation is good because you stiffen up during a roll, and wherever you stiffened up, it's shattering. Wherever that momentum stops, that's where it's going to tear.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to learn how to be relaxed throughout these things so that you just get a rhythm. You get a rhythm going. You
Yeah.
start to realize this is the flow, and if it's not flowing, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I think that, because like I've had this experience and very recently have had a really huge injury because of a landing that didn't go well. Is that, especially with something like for me, it's been front flips actually, is that there is a fear that needs to be overcome before I will ever be able to do that move correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Because the tendency for me is to just like try to throw myself into it with momentum when you really need height at first.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like I need in that case to be much more relaxed than I am. But
Yeah.
there's that fear that is keeping me tense that will always keep my flips low,
It's
right?
funny because I have somebody who is very similar to you actually. She's working on her front flips, and she's in the parkour gym. And something I noticed too is that if you look at people who are really good at front flips, they spend all their energy at that initial bounce.
Hmm.
They put 100% of energy into punching the floor really hard and pulling their head all the way through their legs as tight as possible. And then you'll see them snap shut and then they just float down.
Yeah.
All the energy
Oh,
went
that's so
that first
magical.
spot.
Yeah.
And it's like you just have to put your energy in the right places. Like you don't have to tense up that much. You don't
Yeah.
have to tense up for that long. You just have to snap at that one point in the beginning, and the rest of the front flip's yours.
Yeah.
Everything else is relaxed. Especially like me, I hate doing front flips because I hate landing on my feet if
Mhm.
I don't come up short. Because if I overdo it or if I underdo it, obviously I'm going to
Yeah.
smack my butt or my heels, and like that just sucks on the knees. And then if I overdo it, I always roll because I don't want to
Mhm.
land and stick a front flip knowing it's going to throw me forward. I
Yeah.
just would rather front flip, land, and do a roll. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard for me. I understand your struggle with those.
Yeah.
I hate them
And
so much.
yeah, it's that man, those beautiful front flips where it looks
Mhm.
so effortless.
It's just putting the
Anyway.
energy in the right places. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's just you'll know whenever you do it. When you do it
Yeah.
right, you feel it.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with meditation. So it
Yeah.
there is this thing where it is all about overcoming fear, and that might take a lot longer than people realize.
Oh yeah. No, that you can see. I remember seeing a quote that said, "How you do anything is how you do everything."
Mhm.
I don't know where that originated from. I know it's not original, but I saw it on the back of a girl's hoodie when I was in like high school, and I thought that quote is so awesome because it really is. Like if you have a lot of anxiety going on in your life, if you have a lot of like frustration and anger and sadness and depression, that's going to translate to everything you do.
Yeah.
You're going to go, let's say you and your front flips again. If you go, if you have this tendency to get really frustrated, you're likely to get injured because you're going to
Yeah.
overdo it. If you
Hmm.
have a depression, that you're dealing with, you're not going to give it your all. You're not going to, you already expected to fail before you even walked in. And that's how you look at everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, I understand that.
So the next question flows pretty well into this. So, what would you say to someone who's afraid of starting to meditate? Because, like, I get a lot of people when I talk about that 10-day meditation in the desert, they're like, "Oh, I would be so afraid of my own thoughts."
Man, yeah, there's so many people that get afraid of their own thoughts. I
Yeah.
understand it though. Um, what would I say to someone who is afraid to start? Um, yeah, because the only techniques that I really know are like they're kind of advanced. But if you're afraid to start meditating, the first thing you need to probably work on is just body, just like that body relaxation. The what do you call it?
The yoga nidra.
That one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you learn how to do that, because to me, that allows me to sit with my body and I don't have to sit with my thoughts. So my body gets a
Mm,
chance to relax. And then once you get in that state, you can start to kind of observe your thoughts instead of dealing with them. Because a lot of people don't realize is that, you have an ego in you, and there's you and then there's this ego, regardless of whether it's physical components or whatever it actually is. We can pretty well break this down into the things I want to be and the things I don't want to be, and a lot of times the things that people think that they don't want to be have to do with ego stuff. That's where a lot of their fears come from. They think society's doing this, society's doing that. Who cares what society thinks? There is
mm,
a you, and then there's all of those other things that are not you, that you have to deal with. And so, if you are like scared to sit with your thoughts, I mean, like I said, the first place I would start is your body. Just sit in your body, let your body get used to what that feeling is, and then try to observe the physical part. If you have pain in your knee, observe it. Sometimes you can detach, you can allow the pain to continue and just sit with it. I think cold exposure is actually really good with that.
yeah.
Cold exposure might be probably my favorite place to start if you were trying to meditate, like, and you genuinely couldn't do the mental aspect of it. Not even turning, because I know they recommend just fucking turn the shower on all the way cold. Nobody's committing to that. You're
Yeah.
just not. I don't want to turn the cold from. I don't want to turn the water from hot to room temperature. Like I don't even like doing that. So it's like turn it into cold and sit with it. Just sit. Just see how your body's reacting and try to separate. Because what that's going to do is it's going to create a divide. Once you start sitting in the shower and it gets too cold and you don't leave, you're going to create a little bit of a divide. There's the part of you that wants to leave, there's the part of you that wants to stay, right? And you're fighting the part that wants to leave. And as more and more extreme as it gets, you start to become stronger and stronger and stronger. And
Mm,
you eventually become the captain of your body. You say, you want to leave, we're not leaving. And then you start to identify, this is the person in charge. This is the
mhm.
person that I want to be. The person that does what they say they're going to do, that has command over their body, command over their thoughts. I am the captain, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then once you go into the mental world, you'll start to notice the same thing. I'm a nice person. I'm this kind of person. And then there's these thoughts. Yeah, but you hurt this person. But you're like this. You
Yeah.
neglected your friends. You did this. You did that. And you say, yeah, those are things that happened. That's not who I am. These are things that happened. Like depression is a sickness. I'm not depressed. I have depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am this person and I have anger issues. These are things outside of me. They don't just, I can't summon them, you
Yeah.
know? I can't just become angry. I can't just become sad. Like these are not things necessarily within my conscious control. They're very often triggered by something and I can't control them. That's why they're an issue. But me doing the things I like to do throughout my life are not conscious. You know, they're things that well, I mean, they're things that they're not issues. They're things that I choose to do.
Yeah.
Right? These are me. They are conscious. They are things like I want to give my friend a gift. And so I
Yeah.
will give him a gift. I will think of him. I will go get him something. But anger, it's not like I'm gonna walk up to my friend and I'm gonna throw a bowl at his head for no reason.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna become angry suddenly. And you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
these voices are different from you. And so, like I said, cold exposure to start. Later on, you start to, identify the thoughts that are different from you. And then eventually, we get into the whole, holistic approach of things. But yeah, you get to a point where you say, this is me, this is not me. And you differentiate and you choose you every time. And the rest of the journey is just you choosing you.
Yeah. One of the things I want to warn people about when it comes to starting to meditate, and if you do try cold exposure, is that if you're not used to separating yourself from your thoughts, there's a tendency to have opinions about your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this sucks. And like, I can't do it. Like there's a lot of inner talk that will automatically start to fire. And people, because they identify with those opinions, they will automatically be like, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because like, I didn't like it and all of this. It's like, I would really recommend looking at yourself and seeing if that happens to you
Yeah.
because it will take you out.
That's
It will
why I was
take,
also saying to do it not necessarily cold right away.
yeah.
Because like I said, I know that I've seen it be done, but a lot of people do recommend it cold right away.
Mhm.
It's too much for people. A lot of times it's
Yeah.
way too much. If you had just a room temperature water thing and you told people to get inside of it and they're like, this is, mildly uncomfortable, but it's not really hard. So it's like whatever. They feel a little victory. And you
Yeah.
say, okay, next time we come in, we're dropping the degrees. We're gonna drop the degrees. We're gonna add some ice. We're gonna whatever we can do to get a little bit colder. And they're gonna start coming in and being like, that was like a little bit more difficult than last time, but I did
Hmm.
it. And then
Hmm.
I did it and I did it and I did it and I kept doing it until I got to that point where I was sitting in like ice cold water and I was fine.
Yeah.
It's like gradual exposure. Sudden, I mean, even it's not only think it's good for your health to just jump in ice water. But I mean, I do believe that it's the mental victories that matter more than because who
Yeah.
cares about sitting in ice water?
Yeah.
Oh, I sat in ice water. Most people, that's not what they're wanting to do. It's not the ice water. It's the mind. It's the
Yeah.
mental aspect that comes with it. The ability to say, I did something, even though my body didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then that
Absolutely.
goes into the whole identity creation process of like who are we, and we are basically the result of all the things we kept doing. So, you give yourself like a little cookie jar to look back on. Hey, I
Hmm.
did that. I showed
Yeah.
up 3 weeks in a row and conquered it every single time. I did it here, I did it here, I did it here, I did it here. And then you become the person that did the thing. And then that voice in your head that says, this is too cold. This isn't for you. And you're like, what do you mean? I was here 6 weeks. It gets
Hmm.
colder every single week. And I was here for 6 weeks and I beat it every time. Why am I not going to beat it today? It might be hard. And what am I going to do? I'm going to do the same thing I did last week and beat it again. And
Yeah.
you become that person. And then you look back and realize, oh my God, look at how cold we are today. Look at how much weight we're lifting today. Look at how high we're jumping today. Look at what we're doing. Look at this progress. You look back and it's just a slow incline.
Mhm.
And then that voice in your head, you realize you're a liar. You
Yeah.
lied to me. Every day you lied to me. You told me I couldn't do it every day. And for like now 7 months I've been doing this. And you turn around, you look how high up I've come. You've lied to me this whole time.
Hmm.
And then you start to realize that voice will talk to you either way, but it's full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for people who out there who are listening, like just know that you aren't your inner voice.
Yeah.
It can take you some real dark places.
Hmm.
So, um, you know,
That's a cool thing too, actually, that I was gonna say is like one of the side things of meditation also that I've benefited from is I've realized that if I start speaking with English voices in my head, I'm having a bad day. My day's already off
Mm.
to a wrong start. If I'm in the shower and I'm saying words to myself, I am now the subject to a listener. I'm
Uh,
the listener to a speaker.
yeah.
And then I start to think, hold on. And then I observe, yep, I'm frustrated about something. I'm stressed out about something. Anxiety's coming up. I'm sad, whatever it is. And because it will sound like my thoughts are in English. My thoughts nowadays are hardly ever in words. My thoughts are all in visions and thoughts and things that I want to do. If I imagine my future, I don't say, oh, I'll just do this from point A to point B to point C, whatever. I don't think like that. I think in like a music video. I
Yeah.
watch my life play out as it's going. And as I'm in the moment, I try to romanticize what I'm doing. If I'm typing in my notes, I'm almost like in a third person view, music's playing, and I'm that guy late at night, working on his notes, building his future, doing these things. I'm not saying words to myself at all. So when I wake up and I hear words, somebody's trying to talk to me. And a lot of times the person that's trying to communicate with me is not me.
Yeah. I say I'm the same way. Like I do a lot of writing, and it's my process is actually really interesting is that my best writing comes from me clearing out the language in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like there's like this pool, and then out from that, then like these thoughts and like cohesive ideas come to fruition. It's not that I'm trying to piece together things in my head. It's
Yeah.
allowing what is already there to kind of like float through.
Mm-hmm. And then you get it all
Yeah.
out, and then you can organize it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and now I'm just observing what was because that's what I do. I have like three stories I've been working on. It's the same pattern every time. I have this cool idea, I base it around something, and then I just let all these visions flow out, and then I write down what was happening. And I say like, oh, so basically they're going here to here, and then they're beating this guy, and then whatever's happening, and then I just organize it, categorize what I just experienced. But I don't build like that because
Yeah.
it's too rigid.
All right. So we're getting into the end of our time. So um if you could recommend like just one exercise for someone who's new to meditation to get started, what would you recommend?
Like I was saying, that the cold exposure. Actually, I would
Okay.
probably tell them go ahead and try to just go in the shower every morning and reduce. Or even if it's not the shower, just find something that's a little bit difficult
Hmm.
every day and do something a little bit difficult every day, but make sure it's something that you can increase in difficulty every week. You only have to do it once. That's it. If every Monday it's a cold day, make it a little colder next week, a little colder next week. Ease into things, and eventually you'll find yourself at a point where all of it becomes unlocked to you.
There's one that I really like as well, where it's before you start eating a meal, just take 3 deep breaths. You would be surprised at how difficult it is sometimes to get through three. And so just start from there as well. That could be a
Mm-hmm.
really good one.
Yeah, I definitely don't eat as much because of that.
Yeah. All right, so that's it. I will drop some of my meditation resource links in the YouTube description. I have like a yoga nidra recording and all of that, and if there are any apps that are good, I will be sure to link those as well. So cool. Any last thoughts?
No, I think we summed up so much already.
Awesome. Yeah, this is really great. Well, so much good insight, and I loved pulling in all of that. Our process with the acrobatics and the handstands as well. It's good to see that like someone else
Yeah,
vibes with that
has to deal
mindset.
with all those problems. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this, and we will catch you next time.